Thanks for watching. We're going to go over the Lifforce Biotech example, and I guarantee you this will be an excellent review for Quiz 8 and what you're going to need to know for Quiz 8. You're going to see me scrolling up and down through various parts of this document and bringing in some Excel, so there will be some awkwardness while I move the screens around or move different documents in view of the screen. So just remember, and instantly I'm going to post this case or this material to D2L so you can download this and work this yourself again. The first round of the investment, Albert puts in $100,000 of his own money, and the angel puts in $900,000 or 0.9 million, and in return gets a 40% equity stake in the business. So as we scroll down, we say, okay, in year 0, Albert put in 100,000, and I'm having a little trouble here typing, obviously. So minus 0.1, very important to put a minus sign in front, or later on Excel won't know what to do with the for the IRR function. Phew, that was harder to make happen than it should have been. Albert, in return for the 900,000, Albert gets 40% of the business. And remember, 40% is mathematically equals to 0.40. And Albert retains 60% of the business, which is 0.60. So now the last question is the implied valuation. And I've got these funny graphs to show you what this looks like. So as we begin, initially, with the initial investment, the angels invest $900,000 and receive in return 40% of the equity. So the pie is 40% to the angels, 60% to Albert. And if you remember, the formula for implied valuation is take the money invested, in this case 900,000, divide that by the percentage of the company that is purchased, and I made an error here. This is 0.4, not 0.6. Now my math is all messed up, and that'll give you the implied valuation of the company. Let's see, 0.4 into 0.9 is what, 2.25 million, I think. I'm doing that off the top of my head, so if I did that wrong, please forgive me and come up with the correct answer. So again, the implied valuation is how much was paid divided by how much was purchased, and this is why it's important to remember that 40% is 0.4, and that'll tell you the size, the amount of the total pie. So by buying this part of the pie for 900,000, that values the entire pie as 2.25 million. So I can enter this into 2.25 million. Typing is not working well for me today, and I need to put a $sign in front of that. And now we go back to the case and see that 2 years elapses. And then the venture capitalists come forward and they invest $9 million in return for 40% of the firm. So we'll scroll down, say year 1, nothing happens. Year 2, nothing happens. In year 3, Albert begins to draw a $100,000 a year salary. From the angel perspective, they don't put any money in or take any money out. And here, the venture capitalists invest, and now I've forgotten what the number is, $9 million. So this is a -9 because, again, it's money invested. And then per the agreement, it says in return for that $9 million, the VC demands 40% ownership. So now the VC owns 40%, and I'm not going to continue with the mathematical equivalence. So let's say that shakes out down to the pie. Now the VC owns 40%, and of the remaining 60% that is owned by Albert and the angel, we're going to assume that they keep this 60-40 split. And there's reasons why that's a very realistic assumption, but I don't want to make it any more complicated. So now I figure out, okay, Albert owns 60% of the 60% that Albert and the Angel own jointly, or going to own together. And so 60% of 60% is 36%. Likewise, the Angel still owns 40% of this non-VC owned pie. So 40% of 60% is 24%. Now for the implied valuation, the VC bought this slice of the pie for $9 million. That was a 40% slice of the pie. So take 9 divided by 0.4, and it's $22.5 million. And what I tried to show you is how the pie grows in size. So even though you go, wow, poor Albert, he got stiffed. He started off owning 60% of his company. Now he only owns 30%, 36%. But look how much bigger his 36% piece of this pie is than 60% of this pie, because the pie has gotten a lot bigger. And I really don't have this drawn to scale because this pie is now 10 times the size of this pie. Okay, let's go back to the case. 2 more years passes and things are a success. Now they need to ramp up into production, and that's going to take $10 million. The VC is willing to invest that, but they want an additional 20% equity to take their equity ownership from 40% to 60%. Okay, so we go down to here. 1, 2, I'm sorry, I did that wrong. 1, 2, Albert still continues to draw his salary of $100,000. Here, no VC money flowed in or out. Here at the end of year 2, they invested an additional $10 million, and their ownership went up to 60%. And I did not go back and fill in these amounts. The implied valuation here is $22.5 million. And the Angels have 24%, and Albert has 36%. So now the VC is up to 60% ownership. What's that look like on the pie? Well, now the pie has grown even further. Now here's the original 40% the VC owned. The VC bought an additional 20%. So again, that shrunk the size of Albert's pie and the Angel's pie. And again, so if the VC owns 60%, that leaves Albert and the Angel with this 40%. And again, using that original 60-40 split between Albert and the Angel, 60% of this total 40% is 24%, and 40% of this total 40% is 16%. So again, it's just doing math. The implied valuation here, they paid $10 million for this slice of the pie, for that 20% of the pie. So 10 divided by 0.2, look at the valuation. It's up to 50 million. So you can see it more than doubled from the VC's first investment. Back to the case. And here we can fill in Albert owns 24% and the Angel owns 16%. Next, the product is a hit with the consumers. The first year they have a net income or a profit basically of $10 million, and in the second year it grows to $50 million. At this point, they negotiate a sale of the company and they value it at 10 times the previous year's earnings. So, or I should say 10 times the current year's earnings of $50 million. So that means 10 times 50 million gets a valuation of 500 million. Now the question becomes, how much does everybody walk away with and what's their rate of return? Okay, so we know the Angel didn't get anything in that year. The VC didn't get anything in this year. The implied valuation at this past investment is 50 million. I'm sorry if I have to go back and catch up. So now Albert, we'll start with the VC. The VC gets 60% of $500 million or $300 million for their share of the company, for owning 60% of the company that they sold for $500 million. So I'm going to put this down here but it's no longer an implied valuation, it's an actual valuation of $500 million. What does the angel get? The angel gets 16% of the $5 million. So that means the angel gets $80 million. And Albert gets $120 million. I'm going to pause the tape now, and then I'm going to go fill in the Excel tables to do the IRR, and we'll be all done. Okay, so now what I've done is I've taken the document and posted it back into a real Excel spreadsheet, except I forgot to fill in this part of the spreadsheet. And don't worry, I will make it abundantly clear what columns you put in what figures. Let me go check that out real quickly to make sure I did that right. Okay, I thought I put the VC in too soon. Year 3 is where I put the VC in the other one. Okay, so all I've done is transferred this into the cash flows. This is the IRR function. Remember, it's actually very straightforward. I type equals to indicate a formula, IRR, open the parentheses, and then I just highlight the cash flows. The guess is going to be close enough so I can actually just hit return and it'll even add that following bracket. Not surprisingly, Albert has this unbelievable IRR because he put in very little money and then gets a tremendous amount. More interesting are the angel return and the VC return. Again, equals IRR, open the parentheses, highlight the cash flows, hit enter, and so you can see the angel's got a 90% annual return. And as astounding as that is, it's going to be even higher for the venture capitalists who put in a lot of money, but they got a whole lot of money back pretty quickly, 163%. Common errors, the most common error made in the IRR calculation is to forget to put the minus sign for when people are investing in the company, and you'll see that's the error statement that you'll get. As soon as I put that minus sign back in, life is good. I hope you go back and watch this as many times as you need to. This should clear things up. I really want you to understand how you come up with the implied valuation of the company, how you do the stock splits, how you distribute the funds, and how to calculate an IRR. And all of those are elements in the exercise. If you can work this problem beyond a shadow of a doubt, then you'll do extremely well on Quiz 8. Good luck.